Ja, dann haben wir auch schon wieder 19 Uhr. Herzlich willkommen, liebe Coaches. Bisher sind wir schon relativ viele. Wir haben heute zu Gast Coach Cody Alexander. Jetzt ganz neu als Co-Defense Coordinator an der Mesquite Horn High School in Texas. Hat vorher unter anderem bei Baylor als GA gecoacht. Und Coach Alexander wird heute über Man- und Zone-Techniques für unsere DBs sprechen. Wir haben also wieder ein defense-lastiges Thema, aber wie ich finde, einen absolut hervorragenden Referenten für das Interesse. Coach Alexander hat insgesamt 3 Bücher geschrieben, einen Blog, den er regelmäßig betreibt. Dort findet ihr auch immer aktuelle Informationen über beispielsweise die neuesten Trends, die es in der Defense gibt. Plus die 3 Bücher sind es unglaublich viele Informationen, die Coach Alexander publiziert hat bisher, die mir persönlich aus meiner Erfahrung unglaublich viel Wissen vermittelt haben. Deswegen bin ich auch absolut gespannt auf den Vortrag und möchte euch jetzt gar nicht von dem reichen Wissensschatz abhalten, sondern starte direkt die Klinik. Coach Alexander, the stage is yours. I will stop my screen sharing. So.
All right, thanks, man. Glad to be here. Hopefully I don't talk too fast. Y'all can understand me. So I just want to say thanks for the opportunity. Anything that I can do to help grow the game in other parts of the world is something that, I'm definitely passionate about. Football is something that is really, it's outside of my family. It's probably the most important thing that I do. I do it all day, every day. As you can see, I've written 3 books in 3 years about defense. And one of my passions is really quarters coverage and 2 high safety defenses. I'm just going to really, what I want this to be is more or less, I'm going to go over kind of the basics of why I have a 2 high structure. And then what I really want to do is just go through some film, because I think like that's the best way to visually see this stuff. I mean, I can throw up a bunch of diagrams and things like that, but it's much different when you guys see the actual players playing it, and then go through kind of how you can practice this. Because again, I think there's a big disconnect when guys start talking about scheme and then there's no follow through with how do I implement this in an actual practice. Okay, because we all see schemes, we can all get access to playbooks or all 22 film and all this stuff, but then it's kind of how do we then translate that into practice. So to me, that's the goal that I'm really looking for, is really to give you guys not only the tools to run this stuff, but then how can you teach it to the players? Because that's kind of the number one thing anyway. So I'm going to start off with why I run quarters. I run quarters because it's multiple. Okay, it's much easier for the defensive back to start high and play low than to play low and work high. We're at a disadvantage in the secondary anyway because we're backwards. So we're not moving forward. We're actually moving back. And so to me, it's much easier for guys to see visuals and to be able to react quicker to vertical routes when you're working down instead of I'm working back, the guy's burning off the line, now I'm in trouble. I also think in the modern game now, where I'm at in Texas, we've been running the spread now in this state for almost for over 20 years. So we're pretty much on par with a lot of what you're seeing in the NCAA level. That's what we see here in this state. We play in the exact same way that you guys do. So we are NCAA rules, NCAA hashes. And so for us, and the reason why our kids, I really believe, are so successful at the next level is when they step on a college field, that's where they've been playing since they were in middle school. So we see the same things that a lot of these Division I colleges see, these big colleges that you guys see on the TV. Obviously the athleticism is a little bit different. So for me, what does a 2 high system do? Well, it gives me the illusion of static alignments, meaning that everything that we do, any kind of rotation is going to be post-snap. So when you do post-snap rotations, so once the ball snapped, now all the pressure is on the quarterback. It's not on the offensive coordinator. It's not on the guy in the box that's getting the bird eye view that can see, or the guy in the sideline that's watching you line up. and then they're going to call a play. Because I think that's the new thing that we're seeing a lot of now, is not necessarily let's play as fast as we can. Let's line up as fast as we can, and then we're going to wait, and we're going to see how you line up, and then we're going to react off of that. And I think quarters in and of itself, because it's a static structure to begin with, now you can start playing. It doesn't matter what they do pre-snap, because we're going to look the same way regardless every down. So for me, now I'm kind of taking that power away from it. I think also too, with this static alignment, is that you are inhibiting their ability to motion. Motion is a big part of the game when you have a cover 3 team or a single high team, because you have a lot of teams that will, what I call, rock and roll the safeties, meaning that the moment you move somebody, they're gonna fully rotate those DBs, because somebody has to be high and then another person has to be low. So for me, by playing static alignment with the quarter system, if you motion, we just bump everybody over, and we don't, the less we move, the less they're going to move. I do run cover 3 schemes. I just don't call it cover 3. We have different tags within our split field quarter structure to get what we want. Quarters allows me to play the whole field. And it allows me to play each individual set. And what a set is how many receivers I have on either side of the ball. So if I have 2 receivers on one side of the ball and I got 3 receivers on the other side of the ball, I know I have an empty formation because there's no running back. But we play 3 receivers differently than we play 2 receivers. And so by having this split field alignment, we can play something completely different to the 2 receiver side than we would play to the 3 receiver side. And that allows us to be much more multiple, and it allows us to adjust to any formation that we get. Sometimes when you run a single high coverage, unless you're running man, you've got to run different coverages. Are you weak rotation? Are you strong rotation? Are you inserting the safety into the box? Are you inserting the safety down as an overhang and bumping one of the linebackers into the box? So there's different variations of cover 3 where, and quarters is just as multiple, but it comes from a different alignment, and you're playing from the top down. The other thing, the reason why I like quarters, is you cap verticals. Outside of an empty formation, the offense can really only give you 4 vertical threats. And vertical threats are anybody that's outside of the box and is uncovered by alignment. So again, outside of the box. So anytime that we have a vertical threat, we want to cap that. And one of the issues that you get in with single high is that even though you may be playing cover 3, and you technically you have a corner playing deepest of the deepest in a third, you have a safety in the middle of the field, those seam players in those corners are really playing man coverage. I've always taught cover 3 as basically kind of a softer cover 1, which is man free. So everybody's playing man, and you have a safety in the middle of the field. To me, cover 3, your seam players, or the players that are directly outside of the box, your overhangs, those guys are going to be in conflict, because they are going to have to defend that vertical route. What we try and do is we bracket the slots. That's the number 1 target in the modern spread. And so what we can do is we can do different things with that overhang to the number 2 receiver to either inhibit him from going out or inhibit him from coming in, and really be able to get hands on that slot. Corners, as I always tell my corners, is you signed up to be on an island. You're going to have limited help unless you're at a single receiver side and we're playing some sort of bracket coverage to a single receiver. So to me, it's helping those safeties out and helping those linebackers that now have to fit the box. So let's go to the next one. Why a split field structure? And this I got this from Bruce Lee: empty your mind, be formless, shapeless, like water. And that, when I heard that quote, I instantly thought of quarters coverage. It's adaptive. If you have rigid rules, you're going to get beat. You've got to be able to mold and react and be formless like water. And I think that the way that you can do split field is I'm now reacting to either side of the field independent from the complete structure. Now, we have to have communication. We have to know what each person's doing on either side. But in terms of, I'm giving my kids a home base. so that they only have to worry about what's on their side of the ball. They don't necessarily have to worry about everything that's going on another side. We don't have to sit there and analyze, okay, where are we rotating? Where's the strength? Where's the weakness? Am I rotating weak? Am I rotating strong? Do I need to be in the box, or does the other safety need to get in the box? What I've found is in split field quarters is that you really have become adaptive and you're moldable. You're very loose. And it reacts to the alignment. There's no guessing. And I don't do double calls. I know that there's a lot of guys out there that will call in a 2 receiver check and a 3 receiver check. All that is game plan for me. We go through our trips. I treat trips as a completely different entity. It is its own special section that I go through and I look at and I determine, okay, each team's different out of their trips. Everybody, and I think that it's important as defensive coaches to understand that every offense has its own unique identity. That just because 2 routes are in the same offense doesn't mean that those combinations are going to be run the exact same from week to week. So I need to also be able to understand how offenses are using their 3-by-1 alignments. What are they doing out of trips? And then what is the best plan of action? Am I getting a lot of rub routes by 2 and 3 where they're rubbing off of each other, or they're high-lowing off of each other? They're working 2-man combinations with that, and the number 1 receiver to trips is usually just running a clear out or a hitch? Or is number 1 involved in it? Or are they kind of we see this a lot of times with teams with a lot of speed. Are they a vertical attack team? Are they attacking us vertically and challenging us vertically? To me, that is why I don't like double calls, because I want to have a game plan in, and I don't want to guess on any of this. So the whole point of this is building a secondary to react to the alignments. And I'll go through this when I get into film, but I think that's important. I don't want to guess. I don't want to call a two receiver coverage and then they come out and I'm like, that was a bad call. Because I've been in that situation where you work with people and they're always constantly saying, oh, my bad. And it's like, well, if we develop a system that functions around formations and doesn't have rigid rules and isn't static in the way that it's played, and it actually molds and forms itself, then now our kids not only are better football players, we're better coaches, but we're also going to be able to react to whatever we get. How do I build my rules? We're going to react to formations. Basically, we're going to react to the receiver splits. How many receivers do I have on one side? How tight or wide are they? How far away from the box are they? Is it a reduction and they're really close? Is it condensed where I've got the whole formation within 5 yards of the box? And remember, the box is just the 5 offensive linemen. And then you have to start building a language for this. So we have a very unique language. It's different. The way that I teach secondary is different than probably many of the people that you're going to hear and then you're going to see. And I'm okay with that. And I learned that from Art Briles. That's one of the things that stuck with me when I was working at Baylor with Art Briles, was that, and kind of his kind of way of thinking with his offense is that if we're going to be like everybody else, then we better be the best. And if we can't be the best at it, then we're going to be different. And we're going to be unique, and people are going to have to adjust to us. And we're going to put pressure on them. And to me, that's always resonated with me, and I've always kept that kind of in the way that I look at defense, is that it's okay to be different, and that's where our language is a little different. Our backers are always going to be a force player. We're going to always use them, and all the force player is, they're the turn back player. They're the player outside the box that's going to turn the play back. A lot of times when you hear guys that say sky or cloud, they're telling you who the force player is going to be. Is it a safety force, which is going to be your sky call, or is it corner force, which is a cloud call? And so for me, I use sky and cloud in a completely different way. That's just telling us who the intermediate player is. Because in most offenses, you're getting some sort of stretch. You're getting a deep, an intermediate, and a low route. And that could be in the outside perimeter, that could be in the middle, that could be kind of a horizontal stretch with two receivers where they're both working in different directions. You could have a vertical stretch where they're working vertically and then they're cutting off at a certain spot. So you're getting these stretches. And so you have to build your coverages in levels. And so to me, what we end up doing is in Sky, or what I call quarters, is that basically we're playing safe man coverage. I mean, that's essentially what it is. It's safe man coverage. And what I usually do is the outside linebacker to the back is out of the fit and he's attached to the slot. The safety is going to be on top of him. If two goes out, he's going to snap his eyes to one. If one's running a post, he's going to take it. Otherwise, he's going to run what I call a banana, and he's just going to zone over that out route and support the outside linebacker. In cloud coverage, we're playing what two read, or a lot of people call it palms. So what that tells me is that the corner is now the intermediate, and the corner will take number two out. So if number two comes out, we're going to take him. That means the safety now has to take the vertical in number one. And I'll go through all these coverages and kind of give you the details in detail of all the different ways to run. In everything that we do, I'm just going to give the kids parameters. So I'm just going to say, hey, like imagine yourself at a bowling alley and they have the safety bumpers up so you don't go into the gutter. That's what I'm doing. That's my parameters. You've got some play within the scheme, because I think we're all human beings. We're all individuals. And I think this day and age, with the way that these kids have been brought up, the individuality, especially here in the United States, is so celebrated. And these kids want to feel like they have some sort of say and control in what they're doing. And so for me, being able to be a little bit open and just say, hey, look, here is your box. Here's your parameters. You can do whatever you want in here as long as you stay within the structure, just kind of like those bumpers, those safety bumpers in a bowling alley. And I think what it does is it gives kids ownership. And once the kids feel like they have ownership, and really this can translate to adults too, and think about yourself as a coach. When you feel like you have ownership within your staff, or you feel like you have ownership of your position group, you just feel better about that, and you kind of become more involved. And to me, you kind of become more aware of what you're doing, and that's what I want my kids to do. And I feel like quarters really does that, because there are so many different matches and ways of playing things that it's almost like a puzzle. You're playing a game within a game, even in practice. And then obviously I build rules so it translates through our pressure packages. Frequently asked questions that I get: what are split rules? Because you hear me say split rules and you hear a lot of guys say dividers. Well, we have split rules and we have dividers. Dividers are just telling the DB, do I line inside or outside, depending on the wide receiver's alignment. So for instance, if a corner is defending a receiver and that receiver is outside the numbers, he's bottom of the numbers and he's working to the sideline, we don't want to go play outside leverage on that, because that kid's probably coming back inside. So we want to hang by the bottom of the numbers. If that same receiver now is on the top of the numbers and working towards the hash, or like he's apexing or in the middle of the hash and the numbers, then now we want to play outside, because where's the space? The space outside. The number one rule for defense is to constrict space. I think we make football way too hard a lot of times. Like I hear guys speak all the time, and or I talk to other coaches, and it's just, you're making everything convoluted, when in actuality, you're just trying to reduce space. That's all you're trying to do. You're trying to constrict space and put everything into a telephone booth. So what are split rules? Well, split rules are the receivers and their proximity to each other. If they're really tight, we're going to play some sort of cloud coverage, because in cloud, we're reacting off of two. And we're saying, because they're close, that two's probably going to go underneath one. We're usually going to get some sort of a fade out. We're going to get some sort of a rub concept where, let's say, they're running a slant and a kind of a wheel, or they're running a slant and a bubble, or they're running some sort of route where those two are going to cross. Well, cloud, or two read, or palms, whatever you want to call it, that naturally is built to defend those routes. if they're really wide and the safety can't get over top of number one, then he can't play cover two. And I think that's important. I see so many people try and put a square peg into a round hole when it comes to cover two. Hey, I've got this slow safety and I'm getting an oversplit, but because we don't have a check out of cover two, we can't run anything else. And what you're basically putting that kid in a bind is that now he can't get to number one, but he's got to get to number one. And that's demoralizing. So you got to be able to give these kids success. And so what we do with split rules is if we get an oversplit and 1 and 2 are really wide and that safety can't get to one, he can check the sky, which is our quarters check. What are hash rules? Hash rules are basically where you are in proximity to the hash. Like and this is really for the safeties. The safeties play on hashes. So I want to make sure that I am within 3 to 4 yards of the hash, depending on the split of the receiver. I don't want to go any further than that because now I'm opening up the middle of the field. Remember, we are playing a middle of the field open concept because you have 2 safeties on the hash and the middle of the field is open. So for us, we have to find ways to eliminate the middle of the field from the offense. And by doing that are these hash rules. You don't want to get oversplit just for them to run underneath of you and into the middle of the field. You don't want to get too far inside and then you have all this space outside. So we use hash rules and then we use our dividers. How do they know? How do they know what coverage to run? Because I rarely call anything on game day because it's all game planned and the system kind of works on its own. Like once you develop, like my system, once you develop it, it runs on its own. And so the kids know because of the way that we practice, which is going to answer that next frequently asked question. We work what I call 2v2, half line, and then we go to 7-on-7. So we start with just 2 wide receivers and 2 DBs, and you can do this within your own position group. So we start every day with line drills. So we get on lines and we go through our daily musts. And then once we've done our daily musts, then we move over to a 2v2 drill. And we'll either work a quarters drill where we're working verticals in the face. So we'll all have, I call it speed in the face drill, where we're going to work our vertical stems. We're going to work our slide technique. We're going to work our steps. And then we will have, on other days, we will work what I call a read drill or a cloud drill. And we're going to read the number 2 receiver and we're going to play cloud over 2 receivers. And we do this all without an overhang or an outside linebacker. From there, we go to half line and we set the ball on a hash and we only run routes to one side of the field. And so what this allows you to do is the field guys have to work together and then the boundary guys all work together because you're going to get different routes to the field than you are to the boundary. And so if you are a field boundary team like I am, then your boundary guys need to be working in the boundary. I was like, well, what happens if the ball's in the middle of the field? Really think objectively about how often the ball is in the middle of the field. In a game, it's not. Most of the game is played. I would argue that 75% or more of the game is played on a hash. So you're going to have a wide side and a short side. And then from there, we go to 7-on-7. And now we're, instead of working the 2-man and 3-man routes together with half line, now we're using full field, and now we're working the crossing routes and passing people off and communicating with where the running back is. Is it split flow where the running back's away from me, or is it load flow where the running back's to me and they can load the zone right there? So I just need to know, look, if the running back's to me or I have the number 3 receiver to me, I can communicate to the next man over as an outside linebacker, hey, this is a push alert. If 3 comes fast to me, I'm going to take them. Now you work to your new number 3. And I think, to me, I tell guys all the time, you can run quarters if you can count to 3 because the offense can only have that many guys on one side. Now, yes, you can get quads, but if you think about it, that's 2 weak is coming over. So you only have 5 receivers that can go out for passes. So if you can count to 3, you can at least get to the midpoint of the formation. they can only have 3 on one side. And now if they go quads, what they've done is they've taken 2 weak and moved them over. So now everybody knows that I've got to bump over one because they've got a 4th guy over there. So I always tell guys all the time, if you can count to 3, then you can play quarters because it's that easy. How do I get to middle of the field close? Because that's the next one. How do you close that middle of the field if you're getting tacked in the middle of the field? Well, a lot of times outside of true 10 personnel 2x2, which I'll be honest with you, we don't see that much of anymore. The only time that we see 2x2 10 personnel is really when you get predictable, like guys know what you're going to do when you go 2x2. And so sometimes you'll get that because they know what they're going to get. And they try and attack you on either your cover 2 stuff or your quarters beaters, whatever it is. But a lot of the stuff that we're seeing, and if you've noticed, if you've been watching the NCAA and then obviously with the NFL, is that it's really becoming an 11 personnel game, meaning that you have a tight end and a running back. And so if you take that tight end off the line, now it's basically a 2-back game. So you have 3 receivers and you have 2 backs. And how do I get that is, well, that safety away from the 2 receivers or the 2 speed, he's going to be in charge of closing the middle of the field, depending on what we've got going. Now, obviously, if the tight end's in a slot position and he's outside, the slot is just a guy off the line but attached to the box. He's not in the box. We would call that a sniffer because he's like sniffing the guy's butt. You've seen that. Those guys that are inside the box and they're like right up on the line, that's called a sniffer. If he's outside of the box, but he's still attached to the line, that's called a slot. So he's attached to the tackle. If there was a tight end and another guy in a slot position, that would be a wing, because a wing is a 3-man surface with a guy attached to the box off the line. And that's a whole different thing. But what we do to the backside on the single receiver is that safety is going to check number 1. If one's running a fade route, then he's going to work back into the middle of the field. And we also have different ways of kind of what I call poach, where he can play poach or he can work into the middle of the field and really kind of get that close middle of the field. So those are the different ways. That's kind of my philosophy on quarters. And so what I'll do now is I'll get into some tape. That way you guys can really see how we do this. So let me set this up real quick. All right, so I'm just going to go through this and I'm going to kind of tell you the different things. We're split field. So what we've got here is we're going to be running our cloud concept here, and we're going to be running kind of a sky concept here. You can see that the safeties are near the hash. Okay. He's going to stay inside leverage that corner. And actually, I think this one is both. This is what we call sky over here. And then we've got cloud over here. So this corner is on the outside eye of this receiver because you have kind of a reduction here. A reduction just means that he is close to the box. Okay. Usually when you get close to the box, they're either going to come underneath right now or they're going to run out. And so we would be in what we would call cloud coverage. He's at 5 yards. Now, this particular player is really good. He's got really good hips. And because he's outside alignment, he's going to open up a bit. Now, what I tell those kids at the beginning is I want you square to the line, okay? I want you square to the line, and we're going to feather off. So if you watch him, you can see both of the corners. So the corner here and the corner here are what I call sliding out. Now, this is a really good example of what I call a proactive step. And this is something that it's a little nuance that if you can get your guys to do in quarters and in man, you'll be fine. And now coach put on their man and zone techniques. My off man is taught almost the exact same as my zone coverage, because I really believe in a zone turn and I believe in seeing the ball to get the ball. So over here, this guy's going to step off, and then we're going to get a step off by the safeties. So if you can watch their footwork. Now, once you see that number 2 receiver, remember I told you, what does a reduction do? You're going to get a guy inside or you're going to get a guy outside. So once he goes inside right here, that safety is going to work over top to make sure he doesn't come vertical. And you can see him now, his eyes snap to number 1. Once number 1 is going vertical, he's going to snap his eyes back inside and start working here. Now, it needs to be a little bit quicker than that. Once he goes underneath, he really right now needs to be feathering back, looking here. So if he sees him going vertical, now he's going to be here. He's about a step too late on this, okay? But he does a good job of working back inside. He points, he looks, and then he works back inside. So I was talking earlier about how do I get that close middle of the field? Well, think about it. He's working into the middle of the field. This isn't rail quarters where these guys are just sitting right here, okay? Or cover 2 where he's only going to work to a certain spot and stop. I mean, we're playing match coverage, so we're going to match it. But that's how we get close middle of the field right here. Okay, let's watch the safety on the bottom. Okay, safety on the bottom. He's athletic. He's pretty athletic. This kid's probably going to play Major League Baseball at some point, and he can backpedal. Now, a lot of guys can't, but he can. So he's going to backpedal out of there. Now, the reason why I don't like a backpedal for our first steps is this reason right here. See how he kind of has to hop to stop? If he would have just been chopping out, or what I call step off, step off, step off, step off, he would have been able to see that kid get vertical and try and bend back. And he would have been able to plant his foot in the ground and then come back. But because he backpedaled out of there and he kind of bailed out of there, now we're a little bit slower. Now, understand too, none of these are in a vacuum. Okay, it's 2nd and 17. So I probably am giving him a loose call, and he probably understands this kid right here is their number 1 receiving threat, and he likes to run vertical routes. So I'm totally okay with this. So don't think that each play lives in a vacuum. But if we're going into camp and I'm teaching it, that's kind of what I want. I tell the safeties to look at the shoulders, because the shoulders are your rudders. So as he sees him turning in, now you can see him stopping and working back. This safety should be working here because this is called a shallow, okay? You're getting is a shallow there, and you're getting a dig here. We want to poach that dig here, because what you get is a post here. I would like him to stay high so we can double team this post, knowing that this guy right here won't be open because I have a backer and I have a safety here. So that's why we want to get that quick look of, okay, one's going vertical. Now I need to work in here, and I want to poach this kid. Now, let's talk about split flow versus load flow. Okay, this linebacker is not right. He's got number 3 to his side. If 3 pushes, he should work through 2 and zone over 1, knowing that this guy's going to come. Now, this is bad coaching. This is bad design. You don't want to put the guy in charge of 3 away from the back, or the guy popping out over here, because this is what ends up happening. But we're going to get this. So this guy needs to know I've got split flow, meaning that if he pushes, this guy's going to relate over here. He's blind. He can't see anything coming from his backside. So I've got to carry this. So that's split flow, because number 3 is away from me. So he should carry it. And you can watch these backers. Okay, notice how now we've got it. He needs to keep coming. This guy needs to keep coming with him. And again, like I said, this is bad design. You want him, now he's got to chase over here, because it's going to be hard for him to come up. Now, once he sees this, he should settle here. We should have him here. And this guy doesn't want to turn. You want to stay square as you possibly can to zone over this running back. Now, remember, think about it, what I talked about at the beginning, the layering of these routes. So you have a high, you have a low, or you have an intermediate, high, an intermediate, a high, and a low. And then what they're trying to do with this is push you out to void this area right here. Okay, so understanding this concept, notice how this is what we call a middle stretch. They're stretching the middle of the field. You have a low, an intermediate, and a high. So again, don't make offense too difficult. Because if you think about it, this is bait. This is the target. This is what a really just kind of this is a decoy to get you high or to get you more concerned about this. They really want to throw the high percentage throw. Now, there are offenses that will run this and they want to throw this. But in this design, the intermediate route is where you want to go. So let's run through this one more time. Now, this is what I was saying about him. If he gets that inside step right here, that's called a proactive step. So he's inside protecting himself because he knows this is quarters and we're going to treat this almost like man. So he gets inside alignment and now he's working. Now he loses the guy instead of staying square. See how he opens up? The moment you open up and you don't know where he is and you haven't got in phase, meaning that you're not pressing him, you're going to get undercut. So he's working that way, but this guy's working that way. You can't always assume that safety is going to be there. Okay? So he needs to be a little bit tighter, but at the end of the day, everybody's pretty much covered other than the running back, and we end up getting a sack off this play. Okay, let's go to another one. So what we're going to do here is we've got cloud press down here, and we're going to play sky up here. Now, he's a little too tight. He needs to be about 2 yards deeper. And if you notice, we're really hugging that outside linebacker. Now, you've got the running back away, so he can be in the fit. So we're going to almost play this like man coverage, unless we get really, we're going to play it like man coverage no matter what. So up top, you see him. He's got an open stance. He's inside leverage. He's taking one vertical. He's going to plant and drive on that slant. That's a good job right there. I'd like him to stay a little bit square so he can really drive down on that ball. He ends up picking one later in the game. But that safety to the top as well, you can see he's almost playing like it's man coverage. He sees it go, outside linebackers right there, corners right there. On the bottom, let's focus on the bottom. Now we're running cloud right here. That corner's going to take that hand, and he's going to punch the outside shoulder, okay? Because what we want to do is we want to bring everything in here. Now, we're funneling it to our help, which is right here, okay? Now, hash rules, notice how wide that kid is. He is not taking the bait. He's going to hold that hash, knowing that because if they're going to run two verticals, that guy's got to bend back to him, and then he's going to get away. So I think that's important to see here is that you have to understand how spacing works. Now, the other thing that you can get, and this was real popular about 5 years ago, was the switch verticals off of this because a lot of people were still playing quarters in here. And what are you doing? You're basically playing man. They're locking the corner on this guy, and he's running, and now that safety's got all the space that he's got to go to. So what we do is we run cloud right here. Okay? Watch that offhand jam, and he's going to sit right there. That safety stays inside and is reading that quarterback. The quarterback goes away, so he starts working to the middle of the field, and we end up making the play right there. I think I had a question. Coach, could you run us through a quick explanation of the difference between sky and cloud? Yes. So, okay. This is kind of a good one to show you a good explanation on. So if I get a fade and an out route, okay, that corner is going to take the out route and that safety is going to take the fade. That is cloud coverage. We're telling the corner that you're going to take anything out by number two. I'm not concerned with the back. The backers right here are in charge of the back. The DBs are in charge of the receivers, okay? Now, if I were to run sky and I get a fade and I get an out, that outside linebacker and that safety would take the out and the corner would now take the vertical. The corner in sky is the cap of the coverage and the safety is the intermediate of the coverage, okay? Now, with the back away, this guy is really attached to him, and he's going to play him tighter because he knows any run action, he's going to work into the box because RPOs, 80% of RPOs come to the running back side, and I would argue it's probably higher than that. Okay, very rarely do people run action here and RPO over here. You're starting to see it more, but that's not as prevalent. So that is the difference between cloud and sky, and that's kind of the best way to do it, is how do you handle out routes? Okay, so hopefully this is a good example of this. Now with the outside linebackers, here he can push out, but my thing is if I have the running back away, I really want to hold down the seam and don't let anything cross my face. Now cloud is completely different. Cloud, I know all I've got is to hold that seam because I have a flat defender out here. The only way I'm coming off is if the running back pushes. Because if the running back pushes, I've got him, and the next guy over is now going to take the seam. So that's kind of the big difference in between those. All right, here's another good look at it. Okay, we're going to be running sky over here, and we're going to be running cloud over here. Hopefully, you're able to see why we would want to run sky over here, which is quarters, and cloud over here, which is 2 reader palms. Notice how tight those two are. Notice how wide these are. I would call this a traditional alignment. He's about on the hash. He's on the numbers. So he's about a yard off. Well, he's about a yard inside the top of the numbers. So this would be a standard sky alignment. This would be a standard tight alignment. And so we would get cloud over there. For you, the main factor into deciding cloud, yes, is the wide receiver split, 100%. Yes, and the reason why, again, like for instance in this kid's name is Biscuit, okay? Biscuit, I love him to death. He was a senior this year, great kid, but he is not going to run and get on top of a vertical route by number 1. That's just not going to happen, okay? I love him to death, but he's not going to be able to do that. And so what this allows us to do is for him to give us a sky call, and now he knows that I've got him. If he goes at any type of vertical, I know I got him. Any type of vertical, I know I got him. If he were to run out, I would get a push. I would snap my eyes, look for the post. If the post isn't there, then I would run my banana, and I would wait for the quarterback to throw the out route. Okay, because in all actuality, that kid is never going to make a play on a fade route. It's just not going to happen. You just don't see it. Where are the eyes of the cornerback in cloud and the safety eyes in sky? Yes, there is a progression. And so the progression is this. So we are always going to look at number 2. Even in sky coverage, I'm going to look at number 2. 2 is going to tell me what's coming. I need to know that if 2 goes inside, then I'm probably getting a vertical route because they're trying to clear this out. If 2 stems vertically and runs a slant, then I'm probably getting a slant. I'm probably getting double slant. Cloud coverage is I've got to trap the out route. So I got to look at him anyway. So I want to make sure that I'm on top of him and I see him come out. That way I can use it. Now what we do is we drill this so much that these guys get used to seeing these guys in their periphery. And that's the key, is that they've got to be able to see these guys in their peripheral vision. So that's kind of that's the big difference in teaching progression. Now safeties, I want them reading mesh for quick to 2. That's their triangle. Okay. I call it a triangle read. Okay. That's their triangle right there. Corner's triangle is going to be 1 to 2. Okay. That's their triangle. Okay. Obviously when I'm looking at 2, I can see that quarterback. And so we're going to slide out of there. And really 10 does a good job of sliding. He might be one of the better slide guys. See that he's on the bottom right here? He slide. We get that vertical, and now he goes to cut him off. So he zone turns. He sees that quarterback. Now the safety up here, he doesn't do a very good job of holding that hash. Now look, that outside linebacker doesn't do a very good job either. Okay? All I have to do is hold the inside unless he pushes out. If he pushes out, I go with him. Okay? So they both jump outside, and this is the problem because we're playing middle of the field open coverage. If we both work out and we leave this middle of the field open, we're screwed, okay? Because we're not playing Tampa 2. We're not sending this guy through the middle of the field. All right, so in here, the corner does a great job, but the safety doesn't do a very good job. He kind of works out, and now he's got to rally. So if we look to the top in cloud, okay, coach, what do you do when you get two verticals in cloud coverage? Well, if two goes vertical, and I call it OVO, so if it's over the overhang, okay, he goes over the overhang and starts bending in, then I need to lock on to number one. And cloud coverage is nice too, because if he goes in right now, then I know right now I've got man-to-man cover. Anytime two goes in or vertical, I'm locking in on man, on number one. So right here, you get the receiver going vertical. He works inside. Now we're gonna zone over him. Okay, we're gonna open up and we're gonna take that. Now that safety, he now has to cap the fit. I don't like the way that he stops his feet right here. I wish he would keep sinking back, but he ends up being on top of that route, and the corner in the bottom actually ends up getting a pick. Okay, we end up forcing them to throw the longest, widest throw, and the kid ends up getting a pick. He ends up becoming the receiver and running the route for the kid. Okay, so I'll let that kind of run through. I found on these Zoom clinics that if you do slow-mo, it's not as choppy. So hopefully y'all aren't seeing like the beginning of the play and then the end of the play. So he ends up, and that's a great way of high pointing that and walling that, because right now we're basically playing basketball. And that receiver now turned into the DB, and we end up getting the pick. Okay, here's another example of a sky split. Okay, notice he's on the hash, and that guy's outside the bottom of the numbers. Okay, that kid is not going to be able to make a play all the way down here on a fade route. So what are we going to run? We're going to run sky. Anytime we get a tight end, just as a base, we're going to run sky as well. That safety is in charge of him. That corner's in charge of him. Okay, and so you can see the corner on the top is reading through the quarterback. He's sliding off, okay. The safety, because it's sky coverage, he gets an out route. He now is going to look to the quarterback. He sees run action, so he's going to start creeping down. This is a perfect example of what I call run the banana. He's working through the curl to the flat. He's not hammering down right now. He's working through the curl to the flat, and he's going to end up attacking it. Now, I need that corner to come off much quicker than this. Okay, once he sees that quarterback move his shoulder back like this, boom, I need a plant and I need a drive. Okay, so that corner does a good job, but the safety does a great job, but the corner does a bad job. And now, he's not ready to make contact, and they get what I call trash yards. Okay, on the bottom down here, you can see the safety. So we're watching the safety right here. On the bottom, that tight end blocks. So look where his eyes go. His eyes go back inside. He's reading the quarterback to back inside. So that's how we end up closing that post. He sees mesh, so he kind of sits. Now he sees the ball thrown. Now he's working on it. Now he's working on pursuit. So this is a good example of what I call the banana in sky coverage. How many tags do I play in quarters? I've got a ton of different tags. We play press, and what I do is my goal today is to talk about kind of the base way that we play things. If you really want to know all the different variations within them, I put those all in my match quarters book. But things that we can do over here in kind of that sky look is we can run bracket, which gets him outside. We can play 4 lock, which we're going to go up and press and basically lock these two guys on each other. And now the safety is going to play man, and then that guy's going to really hug the box. And so we end up playing 4 lock, which is basically like a safe man. We can bracket it. We can play what I call loose. And so we're basically playing rails. That's your country coverage where he's pushing curl to flat. He's pushing to the seam. Cover 2, we can play press. We can play loose, which is really like sticks. We can play what I call squat technique, which means that if I get an out route like this, I'm just going to hold my ground. I'm going to squat, because what we've started to see is they're using bubbles as decoys to then curl behind us, or to get that safety late over here and run in those hole shots to try and do that. So I've got what I try and do is have an answer for everything the offense is going to have. And that's it, building off that. You said the outside linebacker away from the back is in the fit, and the outside backer to the back is what you call full cover down. How do you handle the rule if the back is in pistol? So in pistol, we're going to play more of an apex alignment. And if the quarterback turns his back to me, I'm going to fit it. If the quarterback turns and faces me, I'm going to sling to 2. And so I'm basically going to cut 2. And that's how you play that pistol look. Pistol to me gives you, it really cuts the field off for the offense. But I understand why offenses are going back to the pistol, because a lot of these defenses are designed on attacking the back. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. There's a lot of stuff that I like to do that attacks the back. Well, once you put that pistol in there, now I can't attack the back. I got to kind of attack the formation. And so what that does is the moment that let's say it's pistol here, if that running back goes this way and that quarterback turns this way, now I'm in the fit. Now I'm working to 2. I'm cutting 2. And then it would be vice versa on the other way. So if the running back attacks this way, quarterback's vision opens this way, I'm in the fit. I'm cutting number 2 and playing the coverage that's called, whether it be cloud or sky. And that's a good question, because pistol is a two-way go for the offense. Let's see. Let me get to a good clip. And it's a safety read. You said is mesh point in detail to you, coach. Reading the QB hand down, stays down, run down. Yeah. So all I'm doing is I'm reading the mesh. And actually, here's a good example of pistol. Okay. What I'm really wanting them to look at is when I'm looking for mesh. So right now, this is sprint out. So I know that it's coming to me. I know I need to lock on. If I go to the one prior and I get this look, okay, I know that because the running back is to me, I'm seeing mesh. And you can see he's kind of looking here. He sees him pushing horizontal. He's seeing mesh. He knows right now that this is an RPO. So I want to work through the curl to the bubble. Okay. So that's how that's why I want them looking for the mesh. The mesh also too on quick game. Like if you go to some of the, let me go back to the one where they're throwing this. Watch the quarterback here. Hold on. Let me get rid of this. Right now, I know it's pass because I read mesh. Look at the quarterback. Quarterback pops up right now. Okay. It's different nowadays because, with shotgun, it's so like a lot of these guys will just kind of stand there. But that quarterback he's got to rotate his shoulders. Right here, he's throwing this way. I'm a right-handed quarterback. If I'm going to throw to my right, I've actually got to put my right hand opposite. I got to get my right hand all the way down here so I can throw flat. If I'm throwing vertical, now my shoulders are going to be more straight down the field. Okay, and really they're going to be tilted with my upfield shoulder up because the trajectory of the ball is going to be up. And so I actually have gotten to the point where once we get good at the coverages, I'll then teach the guys how to read quarterback shoulders. I don't like in-man on the line anymore because of RPOs. You're right. The tackles lie nowadays. You hear defensive guys, complain about it all the time. To me, I don't complain about it. I'm like, look, now we'll just change our aiming point. Our aiming point now will be the quarterback and the mesh, and then reading 2 at the same time. Because like you guys see it all the time. These guys will fire off and start blocking, and they'll be 3-4 yards down the field, and these guys are running hitches, or slants, or bubbles. Well, if I'm watching the in-man line of scrimmage, my eyes are fixated on the run. I start working down. Well, now I'm in trouble. What we try and do is let these guys take care of it up front and let the secondary play. Trigger to break for the ball is a QB front hand. Yeah. So anytime that hand comes off or that ball, we play top down or from the table. So I want to play. I want to let the ball bring me down. Even on a bubble route, I want the ball to bring me down. If they're going to throw a bubble, it's going to be now. And that's why I call them nows. I don't call them some people call them mix or some people call them RPO plays. I call them nows because that ball is out now. We played a team this year that was running bubbles to run curl behind us. So they run that bubble, and then we're running curl behind it, now we're in trouble. I think I actually have a clip of it. Let me get to it. Might have a clip of it. This might be it. Let me see. Nope. Give me a second. Here we go. See, they're running that bubble right here, but they're running it to run that curl. Look, watch the quarterback. So this is our squat technique. So see how that corner doesn't trigger? Because normally in cloud, what would you tell that kid to do? Go hammer that dude. Well, you hammer that kid. Now he doesn't curl in. He's just going to sit right behind you. That safety now has all that space he's got to work to. That outside linebacker, he's told not to push until the ball brings him over there. And now they curl it in. So this team actually came out at the beginning of the game and got us on a couple of these. And when we came back to the sideline, I said, no, this ain't going to fly. I was like, we're going to squat it. And so we instantly just checked to playing our cloud stuff like squat. And this is what ends up happening is that he kind of sits right there. Now that outside backer doesn't do a good job, but that quarterback, he's supposed to throw it. He sees that corner sit. Now he's in trouble. So now he ends up scrambling, and now the corner reacts to it. I think I got another clip of it. Then they ran an out wheel. And again, notice the corner doesn't go hug that thing up. He zones over it. And now we're on top for the wheel, and we get the same concept, except for they're not running the bubble. So again, offhand jam or that outside hand jam, open up the hips. I'm looking at two comes to me. I'm on top. Now we're running down the sideline with him. Quarterback doesn't have anywhere to go, and luckily he has to throw quickly. So that's kind of the basics. The way that I teach my secondary, and those are kind of the things that I go through. Now, what we do again, we want to make sure that we're repping these routes in a 2v2 setting. So kind of your small side games. Then you move to a little bit bigger small side game in your half line. And then you put everything together with your the air raid concepts and the full field concepts that these offenses are running. Then we do that in 7-on-7. But for the most part, what I'm trying to do is I go down every week and I say, okay, what are the 10 two-man routes that we're going to have to defend? And then I have my kids defend them in sky, and I have my kids defend them in cloud. And we will rep them over and over and over again. And what we do when we get into camp is that, I spend less time on, doing line drills. I want my line drills to be about 5 to 7 minutes long. Let's get through them. Let's get our, and I'm really hunkering down in that it's an intensive footwork focused drill. And I'll send them back if they don't do it. And I tell them all the time, I said, I'm not going to be nice during our line drills. Okay. We'll communicate and I'll be nice to you when we're trying to figure out these pattern matches. But when we're doing footwork, we're doing footwork. And I want that to last about 5 to 7 minutes. And then we're going to go into some sort of 2v2, working those route combinations. That way, those kids, once they get it and we get into the season, I mean, it's like second nature. They know now, okay, 2 goes underneath. I now, corners like, 2 goes underneath, snap my eyes to 1. Zone turn. He's pushing me vertical, tempo off the ball is vertical. Now I'm going to zone turn, work to cut off, see ball, get ball. And then once they get bored with the routes, then I start playing quarterback and I start using my shoulders, okay, the shoulders are downfield. I know he's vertical, or, his shoulder, he's right-handed quarterback. He's got to flip all the way around to get that ball out and flat. So now I know where the ball's going. I mean, there's times too where I've had, my guys don't even react to the field to their side, the routes to their side, because the quarterback never even looks at them. I mean, a lot of these offenses are split field anyway. They're, so our defense is designed just like that. And that was a good point with the one question of, because of RPOs nowadays, I don't want them reading the in-man online scrimmage. I want them reading the mesh, because the mesh is going to tell me if that ball is coming out quick, then that quarterback's gonna pop up and he's gonna throw the ball. If it's not, or it's play action, then I'm going to be able to get my depth, because what I've been noticing is with play action is you're going to get more and more of the vertical stems on those play actions. They're trying to take those vertical shots with play actions. And if you do it right and you take that overhang to the running back side and you get him out of the fit completely, and you just tell him, don't go till you know. Just sit right there. Because what we're seeing now, and it may be different for you guys, but what we're seeing now is a lot of the in-breaking RPO stuff, because it's a higher percentage throw. Everybody plays cover 2. So the bubble, you can get your kids sawed in half running a bubble. So what they're doing now is running hitches, running slants. They're seeing how well coached is your overhang. And if your overhang's just, busting in there, they're just going to throw right behind him. And that safety is having to come from depth. And so, again, remember, the goal of defense is to constrict space. So if now you're putting your safety coming down in a one-on-one tackle with their best athlete in space, well, you're designing your defense wrong. My whole point, and I've made this argument before, the whole point of defeating the spread is to make them run the ball. I mean, those guys don't want to run the ball. And you can do that by just alignment, having numbers, having the correct cover downs, running the correct coverages to their splits, and forcing them into the box. I mean, that's the big argument now, is that everybody's arguing, running backs don't matter anymore. And why are they saying that? They're saying that because, running isn't as efficient as passing. Well, make them run the ball. Make them predictable. Do you align that overhang always inside? Now, if I want to run bracket, we'll play outside. But here's the thing with bracket. If you're a 3-man down team, you really need to make sure that you've got a solid edge when you're running bracket. What you don't want to have is your C-gap player coming from 10 yards down the field. That tends to be the problem in 3-down running bracket. If you watch a lot of those guys that are playing bracket, they're either playing basically cover 3, rip Liz, or they're playing a 4-down. And that's how they're doing. That's how they're doing it in bracket. It's easy versus a 2-back when you've got everybody's in the box anyway, and you can have somebody slam that C that's not that overhang. But yeah, I don't mind lining him outside, and we will align him outside too if we get a reduction and that guy's real close to the line of scrimmage. He slips out with the snap or short before they snap. Yeah, to me, that push motion or pop motion doesn't affect us at all. The backers take the back. Secondary doesn't change. You can't get a vertical threat from that. He can't stop and then just go vertical. I mean, he could, but the offenses aren't going to do that. What they're trying to get you to do is spin down, rotate. Because, I mean, what defeats cover 3? You always hear all the time, those single high guys, is if I get a fast 3, I'm in trouble. Because now everything kind of bumps over, and I got it. Do I roll down? Do I rock? What are we going to do? In quarters, that Sam linebacker or that overhang to that side just works out with him, and then that guy who was in charge of number 3 now works to his new number 3. And so now I'm the seam player. I'm now taking the flat. And then what that does, and the reason why I teach the kids to, the DBs, you are either intermediate or deep. I don't deal with the back. Because if you're doing that and you tell that corner to hit the flat, well, what if they run 2 verticals and they push a guy out to the flat? Who's got that one? Who's got the vertical? You're asking that safety now to cover 2 verticals. Now you're in a single high world, and I don't want to be in that. On 4-down, would it be easier to get him out of conflict? Yeah. So what I tell in 4-down, I like to have a field call where I'm setting that 3 technique to the field all the time. And if you're going to conflict a player, it's going to be into the boundary or that will linebacker. And what I tell that will linebacker is if it's in the middle of the field and it's middle of the field, 10 personnel, and this is really the only time this ever happens. 10 personnel, middle of the field, or in trips, if you get an oversplit in the mic and you're running an under front and the mic needs somebody to close that B, he can give a rip call. And that's what I tell them. And you're playing heavy through that. And I play that as a base. That's not a Jimmy Pony call. I mean, if I'm a 5 technique and I have a nose and that B gap's open, if that tackle base blocks me, I'm ripping into B all day long. And if that will has to vacate and he can't hit me anymore, and he's really got to push out there, then we'll give a rip call to close that thing down. If there's any other questions, I would love to answer those for you. To shorten his way to fall back, yeah, in the gap. Yeah, right. I don't want him, and if you'll see some of my diagrams say fold, But that's all relative to what that he's going to just make that D end right. And if that D end is got a nose and he's playing heavy, he's going to close that B gap probably. If you want to kind of, if you were in an over front and you want to clear that out, with the 5 and the 3, you would just pirate it and let those guys go one down. And then what that really does is that kind of frees that mic up a little bit, to now he can fit the C gap, and it still keeps that guy out. I'm not a big pirate guy. I know that some are, and it is good, but if that's how you want to play it, I would rather just full line movement, and let that guy come through. What does the footwork do with your overhang when they start? I like a scooch. Yeah, I like them. I do a step off with the safeties. And I actually have, if you're interested, I have on my YouTube page, I have a DB 101 playlist, and it goes through the whole process of how I teach this in 2 to 3 minute videos. And one of them for the safeties is a step off technique. And so what is the step off for the scooch? Well, the scooch is like that. It's not fast, but it's not like I'm just standing and popping my feet. I'm just going to 6-inch step, 6-inch step, 6-inch step, be real deliberate about it. And then I'm going to catch that guy if he comes to me vertically, and I'm going to keep square. The problem is, and I hope you saw that on our film, our outside linebackers weren't very good. Every time they want to take that inside hand and push out, instead of taking that outside hand and punching through the hip and staying square, they want to turn. And the moment that you turn, you're in trouble, because I can't see that running back coming, and I can't see 3 pushing. What is something that offense might do schematically that would give you in your scheme? If they're in sky running out routes, if they oversplit us and they're running out routes, it's going to be difficult. Safety's going to have to come down. Isolating, you're still going to get isolated. If, setting the back away, having a play action, it kind of puts that safety in, running 2 verticals away from the back. That's going to put that safety, he's going to have to defend that guy. But you can usually figure out what they're trying to do, and you can kind of create different tags and things like that to help you out. Just be cognizant in split field that if you're running a bunch of like quarter, half all the time, like you're playing sky of the field and you're playing cover 2 to the boundary, you're going to get a lot of cover 2 beaters to the boundary, and then they're going to bring guys, you're going to get vertical pushes to get that safety out, and then they're going to try and outrun you from the field. That, that's Y cross all day long. That's an air raid scheme. Do you use 3 safety dime? Yeah, it's becoming more popular. I think in the upper Midwest, like my dad's from Kansas City in Missouri, which is close to Iowa State in Iowa. So you're seeing a lot more teams up there run it. There have been systems down here like the Cody, Texas system, that is kind of a hybrid 3-4, 3 safety. It's really just a super rotation. What all they're doing is they're just pulling everybody to trips, keeping the box the same no matter what. We see that. All this stuff, to me, all you're doing is in the 3 safety stuff is you're taking one of your inside backers and you're putting them at 10. He's still going to fit off a 3. And he's still going to follow 3 depending on what the coverage is and what the blitz is or what the pressure is from that. So hopefully if you're planning on doing a 3 high system, you can run these individual coverages, but that middle safety is going to play a little different because he's going to kind of either be that high hole player or he's going to fit off a number 3 depending on where 3 is. Is there anything specific you would call if a wide receiver is just consistently beating your cornerback vertically, if the number 2 is vertical as well? What you can do is roll the coverage that way. Play like a 3 cloud. If they're really hurting you with that outside guy to one side, is let that corner just try and beat them up and kick that safety over top, and then bring the other safety in and really kind of run kind of a cover 3 scheme. But roll everything to that side. That way you get that double. And even if 2 goes vertical down the seam, that safety in the middle, that safety from the backside would cheat over and take it anyway. So that would be one way to help. Versus 3-by-1, playing special. Who do you play as your force player? Your Sam or your Mike? Your Mike. He's closest to the box. He's got to play force. Sam's removed from the box. He's fitting the alley. And to me, remember, in trips, you're still got a gap. Like corner's going to play outside. Sam's going to play the alley. Mike's got to take the crease. So Mike's got to be that force player in the box. if 3 pushes, let's say they're running like a, read option, read zone with the bubble, well then, yeah, that Sam's going to take the pitch as the bubble, but that Mike's got to be that force player and turn everything. He's got to be that turn back player. How do I play it? If you're Mike, how do you play that backside safety? I mean, we play regular Sky to the backside. The way that I do it is in a 4 down, I'm gonna make it an under front. In 3 down, I'm gonna make it an under front. So he's got alley fit anyway. He's got that D gap or that O gap is what I call it. So he kind of just hangs on the hash. He's looking for slant, post. If nothing, then he's closing off the middle of the field. Any other questions? Yeah, if there's no other questions, I really appreciate it. Like I said, if you really want it broken down, simplistic and drills and things like that, I've got a DB 101 kind of on YouTube that you can watch. The Matchquarters book is basically, I mean, that is really my thesis on split field coverage. It's what we've done the past 3 years here at Midlothian. Really kind of, I've grown those kids from freshmen to juniors, and what we did, how I implemented it. And we went from having, I think it was like 6 interceptions when they were freshmen to 17 interceptions when those guys were juniors, and seeing relatively the same amount of passes. So, that to me is something that if you're interested in this and all the different tags, I would suggest that you get that. You have some stuff on the tight front. Do you use it? Yeah, I mean, most people will run the tight front. And I don't know why there is a disconnect of when you run a 3 down, you have to run cover 3. And I think it's just because 3 downs don't have an adjuster. You're an odd front. But to me, the tight front is really an even front because it doesn't change regardless of what you've got. The offense is throwing at it. And a lot of times that mint front is nothing more than an under front. A lot of times that you're seeing with that stuff, you can still run quarters behind it. And trust me, those guys that are running the tight front, they're running quarters behind it as well. How do you handle contain versus quarterback? It's either the D end or the first inside linebacker. If they're running sprint out, that Mike linebacker or whoever's in charge of the running back is going to set contain right now. As always, like it too, y'all can follow me on Twitter, and if you have questions, you can either use the contact form through my website, matchquarters.com, or you can DM me on Twitter as well, and I try and get back to you guys relatively quickly.
Yeah, awesome, Coach. I think we have another question.
Contain on pass. Yeah, I mean, again, with the D line, you're going to cop it or contain on pass, from the tight front. Yeah, now I've got to rock. Now I've got to rock out. And then if it's sprint out, then that first inside linebacker. Or if you're doing the delayed rush stuff in that 3 down, that delayed rush guy needs to read out of it and try and go get the quarterback.
Yeah, awesome, Coach. I could listen to you talking ball all day. Yeah,
I appreciate it.
You really kept my pen rolling, and I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for your presentation, for your time. I think you helped us out very much, Coach. Thank you very much.
No problem. Remember, don't make football more difficult than it has to be. Just count to 3. Make sure you cap the verticals, and then kind of create different ways that your kids you can help your kids be successful.
That's true, Coach. Thank you very much. Have a nice day, and maybe we can do another one in the future.
You bet. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you very much. Goodbye.
All right, bye. Bye, guys.
Bye.